Hello again, everybody. It's Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today, I'm joined with Alice Graves, who is the founder of Spark Your Passion. Alice, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm excited for the talk we're going to have today.
Absolutely. Before we get started, though, Alice, just let my listeners know a little bit about who is Alice Graves today.
Yeah. So, I'm originally from the UK, but I've been living in the Netherlands now for 11 years. And I founded my own coaching company because I saw, like myself, so many, especially women who seem to have everything they need in life to be successful. They have a good job, they have a nice life, and yet they're just lacking so much in their confidence. And this is something I really experienced, and I worked with a coach to help me with this. And now I really want to help as many people as possible, women and men, to see and show them that you can go from living in a place of self-doubt to a place of confidence. And it all leads back to you and who you are, and kind of shedding away all of society's expectations of you and just going back to the core of who you are. So this is really what I focus on now.
Love it. I love it. So was there, before we start recording, we were talking a little bit about, how there are so many people in the world who they think that they should be happy because they've accomplished everything that society tells them they should accomplish. They have, the big house, a nice car, but yet there's something lacking. And I know you mentioned that you kind of went through that, but what is the backstory? Like, what was it in your life that kind of created this transformation where you realized you were doing everything that society said should make you happy, but yet you were missing something? So was there like one aha moment, or did this happen over a period of time where you were like, wait a second, I got to make a shift here?
It was definitely over a period of time. And I got to a place actually where I thought, maybe I'm just someone who will never be happy. Like, that's really what I started to think. So I actually trained as an actress, and that's really what I wanted to do. And then that sort of blew up or didn't happen. So I found myself in the corporate world, and I just sort of followed what everyone was doing and what everyone said you should do. And I did enjoy it, but I just always felt like something was missing. And I never knew what that was. And it's this horrible feeling that something's missing, but I just can't work out what it is. And then it makes you doubt yourself, and this sort of fear that, is everyone else faking it as well? Sometimes I'd be in meetings at work and everyone would be so excited talking about the numbers and business growth. And I would be thinking, I don't really care. And then I would be looking around thinking, do they also not care? But they're just sort of pretending they do. But I think they really did care. And for a long time, I just thought, maybe I'm just someone who will never find my way, and this is as good as it will get. And that's when I actually reached out to a coach and realized that, you learn to put on a front as you grow up, to sort of not make waves, don't speak up, go with the flow. If all your friends are doing that, do that. And I realized I can be really happy, but it means actually being really brave and really rediscovering who I am and what's important from me and for me, and sort of carving out a new life for myself. And that definitely took a while. That was not like a snap decision. It took a long time. And it's still a journey I'm on now. I think you still continue to evolve and grow and find out who you are. And it's very easy days when you doubt yourself a bit to look at everyone else and question, am I doing the right thing? Should I do what they are? And it takes a lot of strength just to go back to you and be like, no, this is my journey. This is my story. This is what's right for me. So yeah, it was definitely like a long process.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, again, it's just kind of embedded in us in society to be concerned about what others are thinking and all that sort of stuff. And I know, for me, that's been a constant battle throughout my life, is just, oh, what's this person think about me? What's that person think about me? And, it's funny, once you go through that transformation where, you get to a point in my first book, I had a chapter, I can't remember the exact title of it, but it was something to the effect of, understanding the art of not caring. And,
Mm.
that's something that probably 3, maybe 4 years ago, I really kind of went through a transformation and got to a point where it's like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. I'm just going to, to go and do my thing. But again, it's a constant struggle. It's a constant journey.
Yeah.
So what do you do even today, to, constantly break that mindset of, what, I don't care what they think. This is what, what I'm doing. Like, what, you have any practices that you can, let our listeners know to
Yeah,
kind of go through
absolutely.
to
Absolutely. So I am a chronic worrier, what everyone thinks of me. So I'm like maybe I'm a recoverer, we could say. And I realized, I have quite a loud voice. I'm very outgoing, but I was so worried about always upsetting anyone or saying anything that might upset people. So it is that constant worry. What is everyone thinking of me? And there's a few things I always think about that helps me. So one, this is quite an abstract thought, but I sometimes think about how massive the universe is. And this thought scares me because I can't even grasp how big the universe is, the planets, millions of light years. And then I think about Earth and how tiny Earth is. And then I think about how tiny I am. And this might seem a bit counterintuitive, but in a way, I think it's also insignificant. So what are we waiting for? Life is going to go by in the blink of an eye. And I'm so insignificant. Stop worrying, because nobody is watching. Nobody cares. And this does give me strength. So it might sound a bit counterintuitive to say I'm so insignificant, but for me, it just gives me perspective that everything I'm worrying about, it doesn't matter. And the other thing I often tell myself is, and this comes back to confidence, and this is a lot about what I teach my clients. It's all about taking action, and it's about your intention. I don't need to get things perfect straight away. I don't need to succeed straight away. It's just about taking small steps and recognizing it can be difficult and it might not ever be easy. But as long as I just keep doing a tiny bit and a tiny bit each day, that's the point. It's not to reach a specific goal or to reach perfection. The goal is just to take a step. That's the goal. And those two things together, like especially the second one, that removal of having to be perfect, having to succeed, changing that intention to just take the step, that really helps me. So to anyone listening who is struggling to take a step, I think if you try to use those two things, see which one speaks to you most, but they can really, really help you. And also just to recognize everyone is the center of their own universe. Everyone has the same concerns that we do. So you're worried that everyone's thinking and staring at you, but they're thinking the same thing. So they're not looking at you. They're thinking the same thing about them. So that's also a nice thing you can think of.
Yeah. So that is so true. I mean, like you said, everybody kind of has their own stuff going on, and we do get kind of caught up, almost in a theory of, everything's about us at times, and it really isn't. Like you said, that the amount of time that people are actually, thinking about you, and what we are to this universe is so really tiny, when you put it into the grand scheme of things. So as you kind of made that transition, and started to get more confidence in yourself, what was it that made you then want to get into coaching yourself and really kind of give back and help others, get through on their own journey? Because I mean, this is something that so many people in the world struggle with.
Yeah. There was a few things, to be honest. One, I saw the power of it, and the coach I had was just amazing. She was so amazing, and I still see her now. And I thought, wow, to have this skill, like every time I have a session with her, it's like she kind of zaps my brain, because a lot of coaching is taking someone from looking like, tunnel vision to just opening up so they see all the different possibilities. And I thought, how powerful to be able to do that. So I really wanted to learn about it. So I just went on this sort of exploration of learning about coaching. And then I knew I'd always wanted to have my own business. And I did recruitment for a long time. So I love helping people. I would help the people I worked with like prepare for interviews and helping them prepare for the second one and dealing with bad feedback. And this sort of married these things together perfectly. I felt that coaching, it can really, really help people. I get to meet lots of people. I get to help them. So it seemed like a very natural step for me to take.
And going from, having a, weekly paycheck in the corporate world, to, again, taking that first step and understanding that now, everything relied on you to make it successful. I mean, how difficult was that? Because I know a lot of people, the toughest thing in, starting their own business is just taking that first step
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
having the guts to do it and just say, you know what, I'm going all in, and whatever happens, happens.
I mean, honestly, sometimes I still can't believe I've done it. It's like, yeah, you really did that. What actually drove me was fear, which might sound a bit strange. So I had my second child just over 2 years ago. So literally like a week into lockdown, we had our baby girl. And I was on maternity leave and everything was just going insane in the company I worked for, and everyone was working from home. And I just suddenly thought, if I don't do it now, I'll never go. And I knew if I went back into that office after my maternity leave, I thought, you'll never have the guts to leave because it's safe. And I'd been there for 5 years and I really enjoyed my work. I'm not someone who like hated the corporate life and left. I enjoyed it. I wasn't fully fulfilled there, but there were amazing people I worked with. I had been there for 5 years. So I knew, you relax into it. I knew there was more to me, but I knew if I went back to work after having my daughter after maternity leave, I thought, you'll never leave, because you get sucked back into the comfort and the knowing and the paycheck. And I was sitting actually here at this desk, and I just suddenly had this overwhelming feeling of fear that if you don't do it now, you're going to be 80 years old. It literally gives me goosebumps whenever I think about this. You're going to be 80 years old and you're going to think you never even tried. And that feeling was so much scarier than the idea of starting my own business and failing. And I say this to a lot of my clients who, when we work through the process and they decide they want to run their own business, if you've done the corporate world for 10, 15 years, there's nothing that stops you going back. If in 3 years' time I realize this isn't for me or my business implodes, I will always land on my feet. I'm a hard worker. I've always worked my entire life, but often our mind takes us to the worst possible place. But if you look in yourself, you recognize like no one can take away all the experience I've gained, everything I've learned in the last few years. And that in itself is worth it. But really, it was the fear that, imagine thinking you never even tried. And like there's this quote I just read from a book and I can't remember who it's by, but it's something, and I'm paraphrasing because I can never remember the details, but saying something like, the graveyard is the place where like the most creation lives, because it's where all the unmade songs lie and the books that were never written are, and the dreams that, and I just thought, oh, it's so true, isn't it? All the things we don't do because of fear. So I thought, yeah, it's now or never. And it is scary. And there are ups and there are downs. And it's been a roller coaster of a ride. And I couldn't have done it without the support of my husband. But I am really grateful to be doing what I'm doing and learning everything and working with such amazing people, like the women and men that I coach. They inspire me. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so true. I think, another quote, again, I don't remember who'd said it, but the only true regrets we have are the chances we didn't take. And again, it's so true when it comes down to, even with what, my wife and I did with, decide to sell everything and move into an RV and travel across the country. It was just, there was a lot of fear that went into that decision, but then, there was also like you said, the fear of, well, if we don't do it,
Yeah.
what then? And I know having a conversation with some friends of ours who are also full-time RVers like us, and talking about their whole process and that decision-making process. At one point they said, as they were kind of debating and, weighing the pros and cons, they also got to a point where they said, you know what, the other thing we just, figured out is that we will never be as young as what we are today. And
Yeah.
that is so true. And, I think the longer you stay in that comfort zone, the older you get, it just makes it that much more difficult to make that decision.
Absolutely.
And again, it is something that we always fall back on, is like, well, what happens if it all blows up on us, if we fall on our face. And another podcast I just did recently with recording artist Amy Scruggs, she just released a song called "What If It All Goes Right," and it
I
really
was just
is
about to
like,
say that. Like, we
yeah,
never think that. What
yeah.
if it all goes right?
And that's the anthem of this song. And I said to her during our podcast, I was like, that is just like anybody who's wondering, whether to take that next step, to take that leap. Like, they just need to play this
Yeah,
song on repeat all day long until they
absolutely.
take the leap. And we don't think of that. We don't think of, well, what if it does all go right? What if this, is the right
Yeah.
decision? So,
And I think, though, sometimes, even if we'd allow ourselves to do that, that can also be scary for people. A lot of people talk a lot about the fear of failure, but often, I find, especially with my clients, fear of success, that's also a fear. And I used to have this in my mind. I remember working through my coach with it, what if my business is a success? And she was like, well, what are your fears there? And it's like, well, I associate successful businesses with like working 80 hours a week and being like, it's what you always see on social media. Like, I did it in a year and I'm earning this, but I had to work 80 hours a week and I slept in the office. And I was like, that has become subconsciously, this is the belief I have. So I am actually, it's inhibiting me in some ways with my business, because I have this fear of success, because I think success equals never seeing my children, working all the time. And that's not why I started a business. And it was this amazing session where we uncovered all of that and changed what success looks like. But a lot of people have those fears as well. What if it does go right? I have an image of what success looks like, and that also really scares me. So that's really fascinating if people find themselves with that, like, dig a bit beneath and see, is it the fear of failure or the fear of success? Maybe it's both.
yeah. Yeah. Because like you said, there is this, societal norm that, to be successful, it's a constant grind. You're sleeping 4 hours a night, and that is so far from the truth. I mean, I think success, in my opinion, is just, doing what you want to do on your terms.
Yeah.
And if there's a week where you decide that, you want to work, 60 or 70 hours or 80 hours that week, that's great. But then the following week, maybe you're only working 10.
Oh, I love that.
And as long as it's on your
Your
terms,
terms.
that's really
Yeah.
the way I look at it, the way I look at, the definition of success.
Yeah. And I think it is, and not enough people define their own version of success, which is why they find themselves with everything they could need and they're still not happy. As we were saying earlier, like really famous people, celebrities with, drink problems, drug problems, suicide, because they have success, but they're not happy because they haven't defined it for themselves. And not everyone needs to be a millionaire.
Right. Exactly.
But this is the message we're constantly fed, the 7 figures, 8 figures. Yeah, maybe your version of success is working 3 days a week, living off the land, like whatever it might be. But
Yep.
you have to define it for yourself, because if you don't, you follow someone else's path, someone else's dream. And when you get there, you're like, well, why aren't I happy? Yeah, because that's not what success means for you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Our society definitely defines a consumer driven success, as opposed to, again, what my wife and I become are, minimalist. We realize we don't need to, the beauty of living in an RV is we have a very defined amount of space. So like,
Yeah.
we can walk into a gift shop somewhere and know that no matter how much we like something, like, we just don't have to buy it because
Something
we don't
quite
have
freeing
room.
about that, I imagine. Like, that must be quite a nice feeling.
really is. It really is. And even when we were downsizing and getting rid of all of our stuff and, selling all of our stuff, so many people have asked us, was that tough for you? And, the answer is no. It was, what you just said. It was liberating. It was freeing. It was like, and again, it gives you, this understanding of, how messed up we are with the fact that it's just buy, collect all
Yeah.
this crap. And at the end of the day, like we're selling stuff that we didn't even realize we had anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And we're like, what did we still have this for? What was the point?
Yeah.
And, now it's just really, understanding to be present with others and, um, just being in the moment and appreciating, everything that God has given us on this earth,
Mm.
and to me, that's my personal definition of success.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned a little earlier about how, um, a lot of your clients actually inspire you, and that's something that I find, awesome, going back to my, coaching days in sports, is that so many times my own players who I was there to lead and to coach actually created inspiration for me as well. So it's I find it always, ironic the way the tables can be turned in those situations. And even with like us and volunteering and stuff like that, like we go into a spot and, we're giving, and at the end of the project we found that we probably received as much if not more than what we gave. So tell me a little bit about how that works for you with your clients, how they inspire you, and were you surprised like the first time when you were like, wow, I'm supposed to be helping this person, but I did help them, but boy, they really helped me too.
Yeah. I wasn't fully surprised because I remember when I did my coach training, this was something that the coaches were like, you're going to get just as much as you give. And that they would always say, like, that's the beauty of coaching. But the first time it happened, it was a really lovely feeling. And what I notice is the more authentic I am in my marketing and reaching out to people, I attract people who, like, genuinely, I'm like, I want to be your friend. They're awesome people. And just the stories they have and what they've achieved. I have one client who, like, his whole story as to how he came to Europe and what he's been through, and I'm like, you don't even see this. You just see, we all get so used to our own story. We just think it's normal. And I remember saying, like, do you recognize how amazing, like, the way you worked yourself out of certain very hard situations, very difficult, coming over to Europe, getting an amazing job, so on. And I was like, just hearing that story was inspiring. And also just seeing the work they do and seeing the changes that they make with their lives, that also inspires me that I can also do this. Because a lot of the time when you're coaching someone, you get what's called sort of a mirror. So they might end up talking about something that you're also focusing on in your life. And how I see them think about it and how I see them change their perspective, I often write down notes like, yeah, this is something I can also be doing. So you often see yourself in your clients because you start to attract people who are very much like you when you're coaching. And that's really amazing. It's always like a shadow back onto myself.
Yeah. And I love that when you talk about, people's stories being inspiring. And that really is the point of this podcast, is that I feel that everyone has a story. And I think that those stories can inspire people.
Mm.
And I've had everywhere from, professional athletes on this podcast to, recovering addicts. And it's funny going into some of these shows where they're not sure what they're going to talk about. And I'm like, just tell your story. Like, it's just telling your story. And it is so true. I mean, we all can inspire others. And I think that's the beauty of inserting yourself in a community, because really what you have in coaching is a community. And, that's one of the things that we found, again, in the RV world and even in the podcasting world, is it's just a community that lifts each other up. And I think that's something that's, so lacking in our society today. It's just not enough people are out there lifting each other up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
just the competition and all that sort of stuff. So
Oh, yeah. And it's hard, especially when you run your own business. I do so much of my marketing. Well, basically, all my marketing is done on social media. And there are parts of it that I absolutely love. And there are such amazing people out there. But there's also just such a dark, vicious, and depending on your day and your mood, sometimes it can really get me down when I just read a post and it's shouting and pointing fingers. And I think, is this what we're doing? I thought we were meant to raise each other up, not, pull everyone else down. And back to what you're saying about the story, it's so easy for everyone to just think, to not recognize their own achievements. Like, as you say, everyone's story, and I even do it, I think, oh, my life isn't that interesting. But when you have someone tell their story, they don't realize the power in it.
Yeah.
We just get so used to it. And it is amazing when, someone shares that, and it really helps people connect. And you get to tell them, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was it tough for you when you first engaged a coach for yourself? Again, kind of coming from the corporate world where, again, you pretty much have to check your feelings at the door and that sort of stuff, where in the coaching world, it's really all about vulnerability and, really going in there and showing, your true self and your, this is what you get,
Yeah.
warts and all, this is what you get. So going into, you engaging a coach, was it difficult for you to strip that down and allow yourself to be vulnerable? And then how do you flip that with your clients who may come in with a little bit of a shield up, saying, you know what, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah. So, kind of multi-layered answer here. I'm generally a very open person. So even in the corporate world, I will say it as it is. But I didn't realize how much of a front I was putting on. So I thought I was super open. And actually, so when I went to seek out coaching, no, I didn't have a problem with it, because I thought, well, I tell everyone everything. I'm really open. And I remember one of the coaches saying, that I can't remember the exact words, but she just like cut through me. She was just like, words are just entertainment. And she was like, you're very good at using words, but you're not telling anyone anything. And it was like a dagger to my heart, because I didn't realize that. I thought I am very open. I tell everyone everything. She was like, no, you're very good at skirting around and sort of being all on top. And it was just, I didn't even know it. I had been so used to putting on this front, I suppose, to protect myself, that I didn't even realize I was doing it. And she told me this, and I cried, I think, for half the afternoon, because it was so, that was such an insight to me. And she was like, yeah, you use words just to actually protect yourself. So you think you're being really open because you talk a lot, but you're not really letting anyone in. So no, it wasn't hard for me to see a coach, because I thought I was really open. And then when she said that, I was like, oh, maybe not so open. So that was amazing. That was, this is what coaching can do to you. And with clients who struggle, it takes a bit more work, because you can't just say to someone, be open, share your feelings. If they are someone who's more protected, or for a lot of people, what they find is you're taught to separate your head from your heart. So they don't actually know how to get in touch with their feelings. So a lot of the exercises I will do is to get them back in touch. Stop thinking. I remember I recently had a session with a client. I said, what's the first feeling that comes? We were going through a list of questions. What's the first thing your gut tells you? And he was like, no, I don't want to say what that is. I want to think more. I said, no, don't think more. Go with your feeling. But, we're told in society, think with your head, especially in the corporate world, don't go with your gut. So you can't just stab someone and get in there. You have to ease it out and make sure you make a really safe space. And for some people, they might never fully get there. That's all, but they might get a bit further. But it is definitely creating a safe space and talking to them about it and doing exercises so that they get back in touch more out of their head and more with their feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so important because again, it's something we're taught to separate. But yet I think in many cases, true bravery comes from being vulnerable, and really allowing people to get in there and see exactly what um, what's going on inside. And like you said with your client, until they're ready to break that down,
Yeah.
you can't just break it down. I mean, it
No.
goes, my mom was a drug and alcohol addictions counselor, and she would always say, I can't help anyone until they actually want to be helped.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of walk that tightrope of making them feel comfortable and allowing them to be ready in their time to break down those barriers, and that's when the real work, I guess, starts to get done.
Absolutely. Like the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It has to be from them, and it has to be safe, and it can take time, and that's okay. And some people, and I've noticed this the more and more coaching I've done, some people will be unhappy and they know what it is. They know the story, the narrative, and they will defend that narrative so strongly because it's all they've ever known. And actually the fear of letting go of that and going in a different direction in a strange way can seem scarier than staying with the story, and they will defend their beliefs. So you have to be very careful in coaching. You don't want to get into this conversation. It's about creating a new perspective, because people get stuck in their own story.
Yeah, that is so true. Alice, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you would like the audience to hear?
Not really. I mean, I would just say, anyone who's listening to this, who feels there's something that they haven't yet done in their life that they really want to do, or had the feeling I had that there's a bit more to them, but they don't know what that is. Please don't think it's you, because it's not. It's really not. And I would really encourage you to just look within yourself and don't compare yourself to what everyone else is doing. Take yourself away for a day, go sit in the country or somewhere quiet and take a notepad and ask yourself, how do I feel about myself? What are my values? And really try to push out what everyone in society is telling you, what your friends are doing, what your family is doing, and just go into you and let that be the starting point. And no, it can take a while, it can take years, but this could be the first step, the first realization. And if you need help, speak to friends or a coach, but really go into you, because life, it's so quick, it's gone so quickly. And I think, none of us want to live with regrets on our deathbed. So be brave, be courageous, back yourself, really back yourself.
Oh, I love that. Alice, how do people find out about you? Where can they find you on the internet? How can they reach out if they want to engage you in coaching or anything else? Just look at some of the resources you have out there.
Yeah. So I do most of my marketing on LinkedIn, and I can send you a link for that. So you can check out my LinkedIn page, which is Alice Graves. And my website is simply myname.com. So alicegraves.com. And there's a contact form there. So if you want to know anything about what I've discussed today or just about coaching in general, you can contact me through my contact form there and sign up for my newsletter if you want to stay on top of the new workshops and products that I'm releasing.
Awesome. Love it. So that brings us to our final question. And as you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of the Michael Franti song Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things and the whole world changes. So what's one of the little things that Alice does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place?
I was really thinking about this. It's a lot of pressure in this question. I think one of the smallest things I really try to do is to let people know that they're seen and heard. And for me, that does mean a lot on social media. I have a lot of people contacting me from all over the world because they especially want to find a new job. And I used to do recruitment, so they still see that. And although I don't do that anymore, I really try to go out of my way to respond to every single message, because I think there are so many people out there, they're just looking for a little bit of help. And it's so easy to ignore them. And all it takes is 2 minutes to respond to a message, to connect someone, to say, look, I can't help you, but this person can. And in a very selfish way, it makes me feel really amazing when I do it. And I know for them, it means so much. So on a daily basis, I really try to make sure that I'm a good person, and I really try to respond to everyone who might need some help and just let them know that you're seen and you're heard, and there's people out there that can try and help you.
Love that. That's a great answer. Alice, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me on the show. I think a lot of people will be inspired by this conversation, for sure. And for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. And while you're there, be sure to pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Alice, again, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've absolutely loved it.